The padlock looked solid from a distance, rust on the outside. Heavy in the hand. But it opened with one tug, and Tom Delaney hadn't built anything of his own since he was 15. Well now, pull up a chair. Grandpa Ben here. Tonight's tale comes from Cedar Hollow, Ohio, same little town where Hank learned to sit quiet on his porch, and Noah left a scar in a beam, because strength ain't always pretty. This one's about Tom Delaney. 44 years old. Maintenance man at the county school. Good with a wrench. Good with a fuse box. Good with anything that broke on somebody else's clock. But ask him to build something with his own two hands, he'd laugh and change the subject. I knew why. He told me one afternoon on my back porch, the same porch that needed a rail fixed. If you've ever let one old sentence decide what you're allowed to do, listen close. This one's gonna feel familiar. Tom grew up on Birch Street in Cedar Hollow. Small house. Big yard. His daddy worked the line at a parts plant. His mama ran the front desk at the clinic. Tom was a decent kid, not flashy, helped carry groceries. Mowed lawns in summer. At 15, he took shop class with Mr. Keller, old school teacher, grease under the nails, coffee breath, heart softer than he let on. First big project of the semester. A birdhouse. Tom measured twice, cut once. All thought he did. Day it got hung in the school courtyard, a spring storm rolled through. Wind, rain, that birdhouse took one good gust and fell apart like it was made of crackers. The wind did it. Keller didn't care. Kids laughed, not cruel mostly, just kids. Mr. Keller walked over, looked at the mess on the ground, and said the line Tom carried for 29 years. Delaney, you're all thumb. Tom laughed it off in the moment. Inside, something locked. Not the shop door. Him, after the bell, he scooped the cracked boards into a cardboard box. Carried them home. Couldn't throw them away. Couldn't fix them either. He set the box on a shelf in his daddy's shed and padlocked the door before dinner. He finished the class. Passed on paper. Never built another thing he didn't have to. He fixed what was assigned. Then he walked away from the bench for good. Years passed. Tom graduated. Started maintenance at the school, same building where his birdhouse died. Ironic, he said once with a beer and a sad little grin. He married a good woman named Carla. 2 kids. Paid the mortgage. Changed filters. Replaced ballasts. Unclogged drains. Folks in town called when something broke. Get Tom, they'd say. He'll figure it out. And he did. Every time. As long as it wasn't something he had to build from scratch. As long as it wasn't his idea. As long as nobody asked him to make something new. I moved back to Cedar Hollow full-time a few years ago. Retired from the road. Fixed up the old place on Maple. Back porch had a rail that wobbled every time the wind picked up. I could have hired somebody, town's full of capable hands. But I asked Tom. Figured it was a small job. Straightforward, 4 posts. One afternoon. Tom showed up Saturday in his work boots and school maintenance shirt. Took one look at the rail. Shook his head. Ben, I ain't your guy for this. You're my guy for everything else. That's different. How? He kicked at the grass. Breaking stuff back together ain't the same as building. You still hearing Keller in your head? Tom flinched like I'd said a name he didn't say out loud much. Man, that was a lifetime ago. and you're still obeying him." Tom didn't answer, just stared at that wobbly rail like it might fall if he breathed wrong. We sat on the steps, coffee in paper cups. Tom finally talked. "Sophomore year, birdhouse, storm, whole class saw it. The wind tore it down. Keller looked at me like I built the storm. Keller says, 'You're all thumbs.' Kids laughed. I laughed too. I boxed up the pieces after school, took them home, never picked up a saw again. Carla tried for years," he said. "Little shelves, a planter box. Tom would buy the materials, pay for them, then leave the bags in the garage until Carla gave them away. My daddy had a shed out back," Tom said. "Little workshop. That box sat on the shelf ever since. Said I'd go back when I got better. Never did. I looked at him. Where's the shed now? Still there. Daddy passed in 2019. Shed's on the property. Lock's probably frozen by now. Maybe that's for the best." I set my cup down. "Tom, I'm not asking you to build a barn. I'm asking you to test one old verdict. Your porch rail ain't a birdhouse. And you ain't 15. Sunday afternoon, we drove out to his daddy's old place. Carla kept the house rented to a quiet couple, but she'd kept the shed key. Shed still sat behind the garage. Tom hadn't lied. Padlock on the door, dark metal, orange rust bleeding down the hasp. Tom stood there a long minute, hand on the lock, like a man about to open something that might hurt. "You don't have to," I said. "I know," he said. "But I've been saying that 29 years. He pulled. Once, twice the shackle snapped free with a crack that made us both jump. Not because the lock was strong. Because it wasn't. Rust did the work. The door swung open. Dust, old tool smell, a workbench with a V's. And on the shelf the same cardboard box. Half a birdhouse inside. Cracked boards he'd carried home that afternoon, 29 years, sitting right where he left them. Tom stared at it, didn't touch it at first. Then he picked up one piece, turned it over. "Look at this cut," he muttered. "Not even straight." "Tom," I said, "you were 15. That storm would have cracked half the shop glass." He didn't say try again. He said all thumbs. Tom nodded slow. "Yeah, and I built a whole life around it. We didn't fix my rail that day. Tom needed a minute. Fair enough." Monday after work, he showed up at my house with a toolbox I hadn't seen in years. His daddy's toolbox. "Don't make a speech," he said. "I ain't." He measured the porch. Cut 4 posts, screwed braces. Hands shook on the first cut, steady on the third. By sunset, the rail didn't wobble. Carla came by with iced tea. Looked at Tom, looked at the rail, didn't cry, but her eyes got shiny. Tom just said, "It's level," like that was the only thing he could trust himself to claim. That week, he left the shed door open, swept the floor, hung his daddy's hammer back on the peg. He didn't build a birdhouse, not yet, but he fixed a loose step at the school, built a little bracket for the nurse's office whiteboard. Small things. Real things. His hands, his call. One afternoon I found him on my porch not working, just leaning on the new rail, still scared I'll mess it up, he said. "Good," I said. Shaky hands on the first cut still beat never cutting at all. He almost smiled. "Keller probably don't even remember that day." "No," I said, "but you do. That's the lock that mattered. So remember this. A verdict at 15 ain't a rule at 44. What kept Tom out wasn't rust on the padlock, it was one sentence he never tested again. The padlock looked heavy. The rust had already done the work. The workshop was waiting. The rail on my porch proved he could build. Not perfect. Not fancy. Good enough to hold weight. If you've got a shed you won't open, a skill you quit at 15, or you're not that kind of person stuck in your head, ask yourself plain, am I still that kid? Or am I just still living like that kid's verdict was law? Test it once. One cut, one try, one honest pull on the lock. It might open easier than you think. Well now, that's all for tonight. I'm Grandpa Ben. If this story spoke to you, subscribe to Grandpa Ben's Story Hour. Come back for the next tale. Until then, don't let one old sentence take your hands off the work. And pick up the tool before you talk yourself out of it.